everyone. Welcome to the webinar on how to create visually stunning Power BI reports using, obviously, this Microsoft Power BI tool. I'm Nolan Hout from Compunnel Digital. We'll get started here in just a minute. We'll let a couple other people join. Just one more minute here. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started with the webinar. Thanks again, everyone, for joining us today. This webinar is on how to create visually stunning Power BI reports. The webinar will try to keep it very concise, 30-45 minutes or so. What we're going to do to help keep this concise and on message with this webinar, we'd ask that if you have any questions, we really encourage you to submit those. We are going to take them all at the very end of the webinar, though. So just because you don't see an immediate response coming through, please do not feel that we will not get to your questions. We will try our best to answer as many as we can within the time allotted. If there's any questions that for whatever reason we're unable to get to, whether that's because time does not permit it, or maybe it requires a little bit of a deeper understanding of the question, we'll make sure to schedule time with you after that. With that, again, welcome to the webinar. Let's go ahead and get started. As I mentioned, my name is Nolan Hout. I'm the Vice President of Marketing with Compunnel Digital. Joining me, we really have a powerhouse in the data world joining us on the call today. From Compunnel Digital side, we have Vishal Rastagi joining us. He's the Vice President of Digital Engineering. He'll be guiding us through the majority of the presentation today. Along with him from Compunnel Digital, we have Prasad. Prasad is our practice head of our Enterprise Data and Analytics division within Compunnel Digital. He'll be helping assist in the Q&A portion of the slide. And joining us today from Microsoft, we have Sanjeev. Sanjeev is an enterprise solution architect with Microsoft, and he'll be helping go through a short demo of Microsoft Power BI, and again, answer any of those specific questions in regards to Power BI that we're able to. With that, let's take a look at the agenda for the webinar today. So on the left, you'll see kind of point by point what we're going to cover. I think the more important thing of the webinar, though, is to really look at the key takeaways. What we're hoping that you can do by the time you leave this session. One, how to take informed business decisions, right? We really hope that after this, you feel that Power BI is a tool and you feel confident in using the tool to make those informed business decisions. While I know a lot of us like to and are very impressed when we're able to connect a report and connect the data and say, wow, isn't this amazing? It's even better when we're able to show the ROI of people having that power and that data. Second is just, again, most of you on this understand the importance of data visualization, but really how important it is in decision making, and in particular, for a lot of us engineers, we face this issue of how visually stunning do these reports really need to be? Don't they just need the data? But absolutely, without a doubt, your ability to tell a story with the data is really what makes it impactful. Three, which is the best tool for your data visualization needs. I think you kind of can guess what we're going at there, considering the title of the webinar. And four, how to enhance ROI on your prior investments in BI tools. So a lot of us are already on Power BI, some of us maybe are not. We'll talk a little bit about how you can maximize the return on investment of this tool. With that, I'm going to hand the presentation over to my colleague, Vishal Rastagi, again, the Vice President of Digital Engineering with Compunnel Digital. Vishal, please take it away.
Thank you, Nolan, and good morning to everyone. This is Vishal Rastagi. First of all, we really want to talk about what Power BI is all about, just to bring everyone on the same ground. So Power BI is Microsoft Business Analytics tool that is being used in the market to create live dashboards, to see those live dashboard reports, some of the predictive analysis. And one of the good part of Microsoft Power BI is that it actually can be visualized on different devices. The same look and feel can be visualized on different devices. So yeah, Power BI is one of the Microsoft Azure cloud part. It has been highly recommended nowadays just because of its visualization power and the connectors it provides for creating reports, dashboards, and other things. Power BI also gives you a lot of power to actually drive to deliver the analytics and the predictive analysis part of it. So in future slides, we will talk about how the overall things will work out. One of the key features of Power BI is that SelfService BI. So the SelfService BI is one of the part where the business users can actually go through and create their own reports, while the data sets can be created by the development team, and the business users can actually use those data sets to create different reports. In this particular slide, we talk about what are the different type of reports and dashboards someone will really need to have it, and Power BI gives you that flexibility to create your own reports, to create your own dashboards. So data analysts really need an analytical dashboards. Manager and supervisor normally needs operational dashboards, and top management strategic dashboards. So for example, if I really want to see what basically my team is doing in terms of sales order, in terms of or in which area or zones or geography or region my sales numbers are going high or below. So I think management is highly interested in knowing that, while manager and supervisor are highly interested in knowing about what my particular or who is my top performer or who is my bottom performers, how they are doing, where they really need help. So those kind of things can be taken up by Power BI, and Power BI gives you a lot of flexibility to create these kind of dashboards and reports by using the self-service feature of Power BI. Customer experience part, because it's all been visualization. So as we talked about in last slides, Power BI gives you the flexibility to see the reports on different devices. As you can see that reports on Windows, iOS, Android, and HTML5 devices. It actually been used, and plus it has got a lot of features around it. Like you can connect this with Cortana. Cortana is one of the tools which Windows 10 has been given. You can actually by a speech, you can actually tell Power BI that what kind of a reports or data set it has to pull. It also provides you the flexibility to do it with natural processing language. Power BI also helps the people to put notifications on there. So for example, if you really want to see that who has changed the reports or if there's any data changes happened, the Power BI provides you the notifications. You can always put the alert on that. So whenever the data gets refreshed, Power BI helps you to get the notifications. Plus, you can share these reports with your colleagues and maybe with your partners, with your colleagues, and with your customers. You can create the reports, you can share them, and they can collaborate with you together. So some of the good part of Power BI, as we talked about, that this can be visualized on different devices in the same manner as it being visualized on any of the desktops or laptop machines. Talking about predictive analytics built on business intelligence. So talking about some of the trend changes. So traditional BI earlier was that what happened and why did it happen. So basically all what we were doing earlier was that how the overall information was being used in earlier days before the Power BI came in picture. So people were talking about what happened. So data tells you what happened. The sales has gone down or the sales has come up. Or the performance of someone has gone down, performance of someone has come up, all that happened. And why did it happen? It also talks about the reasons about it, that why did it happen. But nowadays people are more interested, and that's where the whole technology has actually achieved. Nowadays people are more talking about how to do the predictive analysis. So predictive analysis is basically coming from insight to the foresight part of it. So what will happen and how can we make it happen? So some of the things is that what will happen. So based on the data, Power BI helps you to provide that what will happen. So the data, so Power BI use the data power and use some of the inbuilt algorithms to drive what will happen and how it will be happen. It will also guide you the prescriptive analytics. It also gives you that kind of a thing, that how you can make it happen. So this is what the Power BI gives, and we will be talking further about this in our demo. Harness the power of data with predictive analytics. So Power BI brings one solution for all. So talking about business intelligence visions and the key BI techniques. So there are two different parts Power BI plays. Power BI is, so there's a business side and there's a technical side. So we have both the kind of users in the market. There are business users who really want to, who only understands some of the part of it, like advanced analytics, self-service reporting, end user analysis, operational application, embedded analytics, while key BI techniques include like multi-dimensional analysis, mathematical projection, ad hoc queries, chain reports. So there are different things. So Power BI combines both of them and actually provides you something which has been mentioned below that. So it's provides you reporting, it gives you analysis, ad hoc queries, visualizations, KPIs, predictive modeling, and dashboards. So that's what the Power. So Power BI combines business intelligence vision and the key BI techniques together to bring you all these topics which we had talked about, like reporting, analysis, ad hoc queries, and all that stuff. This is one of the great feature of Power BI, talking from a customer experience perspective. When I talk about, because it's all my customer experience and visualizations actually been derived from the data. Power BI gives you a lot of connectors inbuilt inside it, which can help you to connect to different data. So for example, most of the organizations are, and there are many of them right now also, which works on Excel part of it. They use Excel as their main databases. A lot of data are stored in Excel files. That this data can be historical, this data can be futuristic data, it can be something which you are using in present. A lot of Excel sheets rotates all over the. Plus there are small apps where people who are using Access as their databases, people are using XML. A lot of these kind of data are present in the organization on different in silos. While there are also databases like SQL Server Access, DB2, MySQL, Postgres, and then there is the modern databases which has came in the market with the cloud coming in. So Azure SQL databases, Azure Inside, Blob storage, and some of the other softwares which we talked about is SharePoint List, Hadoop, Microsoft Exchange. These are the software. So if I talk about all these four categories, the data can come from any places. So what Power BI has done, that they have brought all these connectors together so that you can pull the data from each of these connectors and combine them into one place. You don't have to write the connectors again for them. You don't have to explicitly write or put any logic on them. You can combine this data and can provide them as a visualization. So earlier the challenge was that, okay, I have to combine the data and I have to, how should I put this combined visualization? I think Power BI has solved this in a different manner. They have provided the connectors, and it's the Microsoft tool, and most of the people are using Microsoft as their platforms for doing a lot of these, like Offices, SQL Server, talking about Access databases. So Power BI gives all these connectors so that you can connect with these databases, and based on these databases connections, you can pull the data and you can actually put a visualization together. Data visualization, look for Power BI. So if I talk about Power BI, if you see, this is the Power BI tool. On the right side of this, you can see there are sales table. This is basically a data set which has been created. So you can see that, okay, I really want to see city, I want to see country, full name, order. These are the columns on which I really want to put my report to be. And then these are the visualizations. You have multiple visualizations, a number of visualizations. When I talk about visualization, it's like talking about charts, and then you can actually put your axis, what has to be there on the y-axis and what has to be there on x-axis. You can talk about legends. So a lot of these things are already built in Power BI. However, the Power BI talking about, so I have on the left side of this, we have talked about that what Power BI is basically providing. So it provides lighter theme of color, data discovery and exploration, interactive reports. So you can see this data. I will be showing in some of the next slides that how the interactive reports are there. Some custom visualizations and R integration. R integration is one of the languages Power BI used to do some predictive analysis. Even you can write some of the logics inside that, and you can use that logic to transform the data and to show some of the reports, which is basically predictive part of it. On this particular slide, we talk about that what kind of a different charts are present, but these are not limited to these charts. We were just showing some of the charts like bar chart, pie chart, line chart, play axis, maps. So you can use all these part as a Power BI. These are all inbuilt in Power BI, and you don't have to be export any of these from the outside world. So you have all these charts which you can use to provide a visualization in Power BI. Brings your story to life with data. So talking about, so you can see how clean the dashboards are. These are user friendly. You can see the data. You can actually make the relationship, how the overall interactive dashboards it is here. So you can see all that. And these are coming from different data sources, but they are on the same dashboard. Talking about start visualization and predictive analysis. So this is where we talk about. So this is the area which we really been talking in this particular webinar. So we discover, explore, and combine any data type or size regardless of the location. Ask question of data to visualize, analyze, and forecast, and make faster decisions, share broadly, and access insight on any devices, which is basically being lead to analytics-based predictive analytics. Now I will hand over this to one of my friend like Sanjeev, who is going to take you to the Power BI demo. So over to you, Sanjeev.
What I was planning to demo here is a bunch of whirlwind tour of Power BI, and some of the I'm planning to touch on some of the major features of Power BI. So what I'm going to first show is how can you get started in Power BI. So to be able to get started in Power BI, it's extremely easy. So all you do is you go to www.powerbi.com, and that's pretty much it. By the way, just to make sure, Nolan, you can see my screen though, right? Okay.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, so yeah, so once you sign in to the powerbi.com, you know, so as far as your organization has provided you a license to Power BI, you would be able to see it. So once you go to the Power BI screen, what happens is behind the scene, you as part of Office 365, you know, that's when you are actually offered a license to Power BI. So you would land up in the screen call, which is the main screen for Power BI. And once you land there, just give me a second. I'm on a very bad internet connectivity here for some reason. So once you land up here, just refresh the screen a bit. So you will come into your Power BI, you know, primary screen. So maybe I can just go back here. So that so your main screen would have a whole bunch of reports which you have either which you constantly interact with or your favorite reports. So what I'm going to first do is I'm going to go to one of the favorite reports which I have here, which is a sales and marketing sample. And what you see here is a dashboard with a whole bunch of data elements, and each of these elements here are reports by itself. So once I click into each of those reports, you would be able to interact with that report. So for instance, you know, typically what you want to see is, you know, let's say you might typically see an executive view of certain data, and once you might want to drill into to see the details of the data. So over here, I'm actually drilling down into it, and one of the cool thing about Power BI is the fact that it's completely interactive, right? For instance, over here, if I want to see just the data for June, I click on this June bar right here, and all of the data would reflect to show June data, and you did not have to do anything to be able to do that. So that's you know, that's something really cool about that. So let me just move down here. And as you can see, you can actually, you know, this is one of the things which Vishal has been touching about this whole notion of self-service business intelligence. So over here, I'm actually not a developer, or I'm not an IT expert who knows a lot about the data, and I can actually completely interact with the data using what we call a self-service business intelligence, right? So I'm able to interact with the data, I'm able to filter the data, I can even change the change how these charts are represented. Like I can even pick a different chart if I want to. So that's really cool. So if I go back to this again report, which is sales and marketing dashboard, one of the other cool thing I wanted to talk about is the fact that you can actually talk to this report using natural language query. Like for instance, I want to know within this report, what is the total total unit sale? So over here, let me just come down here. So if I say total units by state, so as you can see, as I'm typing, what you are seeing is that it's basically giving me a representation of the data. So and as I'm typing, it actually found the best representation of the data. So when I say, hey, I want to see the total units by state, what it did was it figured out that maybe a map sort of representation is the best way to represent that data, and it showed me a map representation with a bubble chart. So I didn't have to do anything to do this. It's all completely driven by this. So this is what we call as Q&A, or and all I had to do was define my data elements, and all of this is using artificial intelligence. It's actually built this kind of query language for you. So this natural language querying is not anything you have to do extra to be able to achieve. So that is, like, I would say, number 2 feature, which is very interesting. You can ask questions to your data. And another interesting feature, which is cool with Power BI, is the fact that you can get insights to your data. So if I go back to my sales and marketing sample here, one of the things you could do here is that right here, for instance, I got this part of the report, and over here, if I click on view insights on the data, what it's actually doing is using artificial intelligence. It's actually searching for insights related to this data, and it's actually doing that in a minute. You are not again, you're not really doing anything. All it did was, based on the data you provided, it says that, hey, there is relatively even percentage of units market share by month running for year 1. It's just something which it identified using machine learning behind the scene. Again, I find that extremely useful, because as a business user, I don't really need to know what sort of insights are hidden in my data, which is really cool. So the next thing I would like to show is, I mean, I'm not going to demo this, but this is something you must have seen when Vishal was demonstrating, is some of the reports were live. Like for instance, let's say if you have an IoT scenario where you have you want to see a dashboard of your plant floor, and you want to see what sort of let's say what's your performance of your plant floor, or maybe you might want to say if the temperature of a specific equipment has gone beyond a threshold, you want to get an alert. So you want to see data in real time, and you want to see that report reflects in real time. That's also a unique feature of Power BI. So you have the ability to create real-time live dashboards. And obviously we touched on mobility. The other aspect is the fact that you can deliver insights to your report not just with Power BI. You can embed Power BI in a whole bunch of other applications within the suite of Power tools within Microsoft called Power Apps and Power Flow or whatnot. So just to show you, for instance, there is a product called Flow, right? So and when what Flow is essentially a way to do if this then that sort of algorithm. So let's say, for instance, I want to, based on data within Power BI, I want to trigger an alert. So what you can actually do is you can actually trigger a flow from a Power BI using some data elements, and then from there you can actually do a bunch of logic. So you're not just limited to writing Power BI report just for visualization, but you have the ability to connect to that Power BI and write business logic, which can mean to different actions. Again, you don't really need to be a developer to do this. This is something which a power user could do. So that's the whole power of self-service business intelligence, but you're not just limited to the intelligence part of it, but I can actually do data-driven alerts. I can do business logic based on that using this product called Flow, which is an integrated set of tool with Power BI. So the next thing I would like to talk about is, in the interest of time, I'm just going through a little bit faster here. So I think if I go back to this to my Power BI desktop here, so one of the other thing I was touching on was you can actually get data and publish this data to your other parts of the organization. So over here, within my organization, I've got a bunch of reports which are already published to me, and I can actually go in and then download this report. So that's how you would, you can actually discover your content. And once you go in there, these are all, we call them apps right now. So this is, we used to call them content packs. So essentially, these are all reports which are pre-published dashboards where I can actually go click of a button. I can download the report and actually view this report. So again, it's actually loading here. Give me a second while my internet is not is cooperating with me. So as you can see, these are all reports which I can click of a button, I can actually get. So, and this is not limited to what your organization is offering, but this is also, so let's say for instance you have Salesforce or any other SaaS products, they all create custom reports and they make them available within this app gallery. So I can actually go click of a button, whether with a whole bunch of SaaS providers or SAP or any of these products have inbuilt reports which you can actually go in, click of a button, you will be able to download them and leverage that. So you don't really, so what I'm trying to say here is you are, as a power user, you do not need to build these reports. You have the ability to work with this report, interact with this report. You have the ability to drill down to these reports without building those reports. So I think that's pretty cool. So the next thing I would like to show you is how do you really build a report? So typically, most of the time, I mean, you can definitely build a report using the GUI interface, but most of the time you are building a report using this tool called Power BI Desktop. And like Vishal was saying earlier, you have the ability to get data from a multitude of different data sources, and then you can actually, organize or design these reports. And then pretty much, so over here, it's actually showing you a whole bunch of different data sources I can get to. So one thing which is maybe pretty interesting is this, is there something called Power BI data flow, which is hidden somewhere here. So in fact, if I go here from get data, you will see this thing called Power BI data flow. So what Power BI data flow is, you can think of it like a semantic data layer where you're already pre-creating these data sets and you're defining your own little schema. And then you're not really going directly to all these underlying data sources, but you can actually have an in-between data schema which you define and you can interact with it. So what you first do is obviously you go get the data, and once you get the data, you would have that either in a tabular data schema here, where you, in this case, I have imported the data. You don't really have to import the data. You can have a live connection back to the existing data source. And then you can also build like a data schema. You can do some self-service ETL, self-service data cleansing or processing. And then once you, what you start doing here is, I can just drag and drop right from here, certain data visualizations. So over here, I got something already. So if I want to quickly change that to a different type of chart, I can do that. So it's all drag and drop, right? So I'm not really writing any code at all. I can even write Python scripts, R scripts, and all of these visualizations, like Vishal was saying earlier, I can also create my own custom visualizations, right? And so it's extremely easy to do that. And then you can, and everything in here is drag and drop. So I can actually drag and drop my value here, and it basically reflects that immediately here. So very, very easy to create, visually appealing reports using this Power BI desktop. And once I do that, all I do is I click publish, and then it actually go to, once it's saved the changes, and I can actually publish into my Power BI workspace. Extremely easy to do that as well. So again, as you can see, what we are talking about here is empowering power users to create the reports, create very powerful visualizations without a single line of code. So that's the whirlwind tool of Power BI desktop. So now one of the other thing I want to talk about here is, so when you talk about data analytics, one of the key thing you would want to get is, maybe I was just leaving it to the last, is how can we how can we leverage advanced analytics and artificial intelligence within your reports? So I'm just going to go through this here. So there is actually a few different AI themes within Power BI. So the first is, how can you help business users understand their data? How can you help analysts prepare the data and make it easy for data scientists to collaborate? So let's see how we do that in each of these areas. So first is how business users, how can we help business users to understand their data better? So I demonstrated already this notion of Q&A, which is a way in which you can actually ask simple questions. And then by asking those simple questions, without doing any line of code, you are able to, it automatically provides you a visualization using this notion of Q&A. Again, this is built using artificial intelligence behind the scene. You don't really have to worry about how it's being written, but it actually, it just takes care of you behind the scene. And the other thing I showed you is quick insights. We also demonstrated how you can actually see quick insights to your data without writing a line of code. And then one of the other thing I wanted to talk about is how do you get analysts to prepare the data? So I think and I think one of the things we talked about here is, creating a forecast. Like, so one of the things Vishal was touching about is, how do you create a forecast line? So you want to see, you have a set of data which has got a set of pattern, and based on that pattern, how can you define how that's going to look at from a forecast perspective? So again, you don't really have to write a line of code here. It actually can automatically identify how from the pattern of data, it can create a forecast line for you. Another way in which we can embed AI is using this notion of cognitive services. So one of the things you might want to typically do is you have a set of data, and you might want to extract sentiments out of the data. So, out of this data, do you have positive, negative sentiments, or key phrase extractions and things like that? So what Microsoft offers a whole bunch of out-of-the-box cognitive services to do things like sentiment analysis, speech recognition, and all those things. And what you could do is, as part of the Power BI data flow, as you're preparing your data, you can embed sentiment analysis, key phrase extraction, everything into data. So once you create the query, drag and drop from using the Power BI data flow, you can actually ingest sentiment analysis and key phrase extraction into your data. So that's really cool as well. The other thing which is really cool is this notion of automated machine learning. So what we are doing, what I'm showing here is, I can actually, I'm sorry, you use, let's say for instance, I have a bunch of data, and I want to do some things like binary classification or predictive analytics on your data. What this does is, without again writing a line of code, you can actually look at the data, and then using this new product which we introduced called automated machine learning, it looks at the data and then identify and provides a bunch of different machine learning algorithms which make sense to that data. And then you can go and apply that. So whether you want to do classification, or whether you want to do neural networks, or there's a few different machine learning models which are available. So you take that data and then you apply that, and then it actually can, so in this case, what you want to achieve here is predictive analytics. Or let's say you want to do some sort of in financial industry, you might want to look at a specific set of data, and you want to look at outliers with respect to, hey, is there let's say you're trying to identify money laundering, or you're having such a data, and you want to look at some you want to automatically identify some outliers with respect to some patterns within the data. So you could do that. So again, without writing a line of code, you have the ability to automatically apply machine learning algorithms with a few clicks. So that is the Azure machine learning integration. And then the other thing is, with respect to machine learning, one of the things we also added is this thing called Python visualization. Python is a very popular coding language which people use. Again, you need to be a developer to be able to do this. So the idea here is I can write Python code embedded right within my Power BI dashboard, and then it can automatically visualize the data based on the code which I'm writing. All right, so with that, I will stop for any Q&A.
So the question is, can I import a company data dictionary into Power BI? If so, can I allow report users to view the definition of terms and metrics used in the report?
Sure, yeah. So when you think about a company data dictionary, I'm not sure if there's a specific, I mean, it can actually exist in multiple different locations. So I think, yeah, I mean, certainly I think what you have to do then is once you get that data dictionary, so there'll definitely be a data definition, a schema definition. So you can go in and then define that. So once you import that data, you can actually overlay with that with your data dictionary. So certainly you can do that, but depending on the type of data dictionary you have, you might have to write some code to be able to get into the Power BI data flows within the data flow. Does that answer the question?
How would you change the data source from a local drive to one on the cloud for an existing report?
Okay, so how do you change the data source from a local data source to one in the cloud?
Cloud for the existing report.
So, I mean, the best way is once you have the report, right? So you have to go get, you click on get data and connect to the cloud data source. But I mean, obviously, you know, you might have something local which might have a different schema than what's in the cloud. So, I mean, if you're thinking about switching the data from what you have to the cloud with the same exact definition, there's no easy way to do that. But you can certainly, you know, go to the same report, and then you can have multiple data sources within the same report. So you might have some data source, you know, you just click on more, and then you can connect. So a report can either have a data source from the cloud or on-prem or on local or anywhere else, right? So and the way you do that is there's something called as a data gateway, which you use to connect to the cloud or any of the data sources. I mean, it's just a matter of you going to the report and then connecting to the other data sources and then, you know, mapping to that schema.
Yeah, can I answer this also? I have done it in a little bit different way. This is Prasad. What I have done is I migrated the local data that I have in a data source onto Azure, and then I deleted that data source that is existing locally. I brought the data source from Azure with the same previous name that was there in the common data model. You know, you might have seen that schema that Sanjeev was showing earlier. If you bring it with the same name in the common data model, then without doing anything, you know, when you connect that data source in that common data model, the report will now pull from the cloud rather than pulling from a local data source.
Yeah, that's pretty clever. Yeah, thanks.
Another question is that why Power BI is better than Microsoft Azure?
Well, Power BI is Microsoft Azure as two different things. Azure is a cloud platform which offers a whole bunch of things. I mean, Power BI is just all that Power BI does is it's meant for self-service reporting. And within Azure, there's no product which does self-service reporting. Power BI is just another product. So these are, we are comparing apples and oranges here.
So another question is that how secure is Power BI in terms of security?
Yep, that's a very, very good question. So security is a very, very wide term, and it can mean a whole bunch of things. So when it comes to Power BI, from a security perspective, we make sure that how the data is stored, it's encrypted. When you authenticate into it, you are using Azure AD-based authentication, which means you get two-factor authentication, and the data itself, the way it's stored within Power BI. So behind the scene, it uses Azure. So all the goodness with respect to Azure security comes into picture when how data is stored. But then again, there's a whole bunch of other things you need to think about with respect to how you secure the data behind the scene, how because the data could sit somewhere else, right? How do you secure that data? How do you authenticate? So there's a whole bunch of other things which becomes a shared responsibility between the customer and how it's being stored.
Sanjeev, in a follow-up to a question you answered earlier about importing company data, there's a follow-up on that. It asks, is there a format we can aim for as we're building out our data that is just like inherently compatible with Power BI? So some type of template or Excel template or something like that. This person says that right now they're using Excel, just a way to make that easier when they do make a switch over to Power BI.
Sure, yeah. I mean, Excel is extremely easy to pull into Power BI. So what we could do is, you can go to Power BI, import that into Excel, and then once you publish it, obviously that Excel data will be persisted along with Power BI and available in cloud. So you can also take Excel and, like Prasad was saying, you can push that data into what we call as a common data model within Microsoft. You can think of, I don't know if you guys know Access back in the days. It's similar to that, but way more powerful. So there is this notion of common data model, and there's also something called as Power BI data flow, which can also store data. So you can take this Excel data and you can dump that into either common data model or Power BI data flow, and then you can actually report out of that. So that's that would be the ideal way in which you would publish the data. So multiple ways in which you can do it. You can either embed the data within Power BI or publish the Excel data into some data source, and then create the report out of that. And all of the doesn't require any line of code. Does that answer the question?
Let's hope so. I'm sure Joan will tell us. Joan, feel free to write in if you need a follow-up to that. So maybe just, I see one question here, then if there's any last ones, feel free to add those in. We have a couple minutes left, but one we hear quite often, can you just explain obviously a little bit, just in your own words, this debate of Power BI versus Tableau? Which one is better for which application, right? I think both are great tools, but Sanjeev, from your side, where do you think Power BI maybe has a leg up over Tableau in terms of price, functionality, features, fit, things like that?
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not an expert in Tableau, but as far as I understand, Tableau, I'm not sure if it's a SaaS solution. I mean, Tableau has got, I believe Tableau has got on-premise. Sorry?
It's an on-prem solution. So Tableau is an on-prem solution and Power BI is a cloud solution. So of course, both have their own positive factors to use. talking about like, but Power BI is actually being taken over by, because it is being supported by Microsoft altogether. It has got all the connectors around it. Talking about it is a lighter weight, plus it is easy to use. And again, one of the major factors that is very cost effective, like giving $10, you can actually use Power BI for a month and see how you're performing. While Tableau is very heavy tool, it's on-prem, and it's actually been having, and you have to pay a huge, big, fat license fee to use that particular tool. So there are multiple factors on which the organization decides on that, and that's where the Power BI wins.
I guess one of the things which, when the fact that because Power BI is a SaaS-based solution, which means it's cloud only, there's also an on-prem solution for Power BI.
Yeah,
well. But because of the cloud, the benefit is we can constantly release new features. Like for instance, I spoke about machine learning, embedded machine learning, the Q&A features, and all those quick insights. I don't think those kind of features exist in Tableau, and that's because it's an on-prem solution and they cannot release these kind of features as quickly as possible. So a lot of those machine learning capabilities, the ability to create all this Q&A, I don't think, those are big, huge differentiators in my mind.
Great, thank you. And thank you everyone for joining. We're going to conclude the webinar at this time. Thank you for spending an hour with us. Really apologize for the audio issues we experienced earlier, but you got 1.5 demos of Power BI, so maybe there's some value add there. Please definitely reach out to us if you have any further questions about how to leverage Power BI. If you're already using it and you need some expert advice, we're happy to help you leverage that investment. Or if you're on Excel and you're looking to start a new tool like Power BI, we're happy to help create proof of concepts or just kind of guide you down that adoption path with the tool. With that, again, we'll conclude the webinar for today. Apologies for the technical issues we had, and please keep in touch with us. We'll be sure to send out webinar replay links to everybody that joined the call today so that you can share that with your team. Thank you, and have a wonderful rest of your week.
Thank you, everyone.